couple minutes, so I wanted everybody to just close their eyes and just try and relax and center yourself. And just vision yourself, you live in Miami, vision yourself on the beach with the waves rolling. And just take a deep breath. And take another deep breath. Another deep breath. Just inhale. And then okay. So you can open your eyes. And one of the things that I love to teach about is the medicinal qualities of food and also the spiritual side of food. And I think sometimes it's not tapped into or it's not talked about because it's on a deep level. And so that's why my nonprofit organization is called Conscious Eating and Living, because I teach people to be conscious about their food choices and about their living choices. So it's not just about the food, it's also about the spiritual choices. And that when we make good choices with food, and we choose food that's consciously raised and consciously prepared, then it really affects us spiritually and holistically, and the mind, body, and the soul. And so it's not just about one thing, it's about a lot of things. And so basically, it's the whole picture. And so when I went to nursing school, actually in the 70s, they taught about holistic health. And they taught us about mind, body, healing, and spirituality, which is unusual. And so basically, when you eat food, and you eat food that's not consciously raised, it will affect you spiritually. And I believe, and it's just my belief, that a lot of times the violence that's in the world, the cruelty that's in the world, the abuse that's in the world, the inhumane way of speaking to people and treating people has to do with the food that they eat and the pharmaceuticals that they're on. And if you eat food from animals that are tortured and treated inhumanely, it will affect you spiritually. And it'll affect your personality. You know, you may be abusive, you may be nasty, you may be angry, you may be not a nice person. And if you also take, sometimes you have to take pharmaceuticals. I am not that radical that I don't. I know that, God forbid, you're in an emergency situation, you need pharmaceuticals. Okay, so I'm not that out there where I say that they're not good for you. But long-term wise, I don't think it's necessary. In a lot of cases, if you can heal yourself with food medicinally, a lot of times you can get off of a lot of pharmaceuticals. And the pharmaceuticals have a lot of side effects. Antidepressants make people crazy. They make them suicidal. There's a lot of side effects with these drugs. And I just promote and talk to people, if you can get off of them, to try to get off of them. To just use them for an emergency situation and something that's needed in the moment, but then long-term wise to try some other alternatives. Because I'm an herbalist and there are herbal formulas that do the same things a lot of times, but they don't have the side effects that pharmaceuticals have because they're unnatural. So I'm big on talking to people about that and teaching people about that, and I also teach about being conscious about the food that you choose. And if you, it's not like 100 years ago or 200 years ago when they raised animals. animals, and the way they raised them, and what they did, and how they treated them. And I'm not, Jeff knows, I am not like this radical vegan person, because I know some people do not want to stop eating animals. And so I support that, and I just say, if you're going to do that, do it consciously. Do it when they're humanely raised, and they're, maybe they're old, and they're ready to be slaughtered, or whatever it is, and there's a blessing set over them, and they're breastfed, and they're treated humanely, and they're done naturally, whatever. There are options, of that way if somebody totally has to do it. So I don't judge anybody. I don't say to somebody, you have to be vegan or you have to do this. I just try to love everybody unconditionally, and if that's the path that you choose, just choose it consciously. So I just, animals were given to us, by nature for a reason, and there's things that we get from them in some ways, maybe medicinally, or possibly, for something that we need or whatever. And they're not going to live forever, so if they're going to die anyhow, we might as well use, like the Indians did, 1,000 years ago. They used, the leather for something, or, the Eskimos are freezing and wherever they need fur. There's nothing else. Trust me, I was living in Pittsburgh. I'm from Florida originally, and I lived in Pittsburgh for 11 years. And there is nothing that keeps you warm when you're living in climates like that. So if you try to get a vegan coat or vegan shoes, I'm being realistic. It's, minus 40 windshield, I think you need a fur, or whatever it is. But if you do it humanely, and the animals were not tortured like they did 200 years ago when the Indians, went out and, caught the animals, put a blessing over the animal, and used the animal, used the whole animal for that purpose. That's not the reality of what our world is like today. It's not. They're penned up, which I'm sure you know, and they're caged, and they're treated inhumanely, and they're fed unnaturally, and they're fed antibiotics and stuff like that. I see the balance, and I see the middle. So I'm not the radical vegan that says, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, whatever it is, because there's a reality there. Live in the real world, and I know other countries in Russia, they won't stay warm. They don't have things like that. But I teach people, if you're gonna do it consciously, and do it humanely, and do it in a loving way. So some of the things that I do like to teach about, and what the topic was, is the medicinal qualities of food. And I just really love that, because a lot of people don't really know about it, and they tend to take, I think, the easy way out in a lot of ways. Take an Advil if you have pain, or take a Tylenol if you have something, or whatever it is. And instead, if you could do it medicinally, and you can do it with ginger, as an anti-inflammatory, or you can take turmeric, as an anti-inflammatory, or antiviral. There's so many other options, instead of taking something that's synthetic, over the counter.
What's the best form that you've discovered for consuming turmeric for the anti-inflammatory? Any specific form of it? I've heard that fermenting it is like the #1 way to actually receive the anti-inflammatory, but I don't know if that's really true. I'm taking the pills right now, just for the heck of it, to see what it's like, see if it does anything.
I wouldn't do the pills. I would put it, if you want to try to use it, you can use it in food when you're cooking, and just sprinkle it on stuff. There's a recipe for turmeric tea. You can go online and look it up. I don't know it by memory, but it's really good.
Oh, the golden milk? Is it that one?
As long as there's no animal products in it.
Yeah, no animal products. It's like coconut.
Or you can do just water, boil some water, put some turmeric in it, sweeten it with something, and it's really good. The same as anything, there is caution. You have to read, sometimes turmeric is not good if you're on certain medications, if you have certain issues or whatever. So you have to be conscious about that. You have to Google it. Now you can Google everything and find out and get good sources and make sure that if you're using a turmeric, you know, that it's okay for you to use it. And you can have too much of something. You know, that's always an issue. The same as you have too many greens. You know, all of us that love kale and spinach and make sure we get all our greens, you're going to be running to the bathroom many, many times, you know, and urinating and, you know, having bowel movements because it's a diuretic. You know, some of these things are diuretics, so diuretics make you urinate if you don't know what a diuretic is. So you have to be conscious about that too, about how much anything food is medicinal. And Hippocrates, his background was always saying, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. And I have that on my website, and I talk about it. So you just have to be aware, you know, things like even watermelon. If you have too much watermelon, you're going to be going to the bathroom a lot, because it's water. So you can really overdo it with anything. It's just always being in the middle and staying balanced. So I have a website. I have actually some cards with me, and I also have my book if anybody's interested in purchasing it. And I do a monthly newsletter. I write it myself, and it just, what it has is, it has, I'll pick an herb, because I do herb stuff, and I'll say like rosemary. I think this, you can find me on Facebook too. So I post it on Facebook. Rosemary, what's its medicinal purposes, what it does, and then I have a recipe. I think, I don't want to give you a number because I don't want to lie, but I think I have thousands and thousands and thousands of recipes on my computer, just that I've done over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And I just pick a photo of a recipe that I've done, and I post it on the newsletter, and then I give you the ingredients with it. And I'm not a recipe person because I'm very spiritual and I'm very intuitive, and so I just cook intuitively. I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you know, and I make something. So it's not, there's not, you know, like a half a cup of this, or so anybody that likes that, that's not who I am.